Good afternoon, everyone. I warmly welcome you to the Colombo International Book Fair in its 24th edition. In an effort to bridge the gap between the readers and the authors, Neptune Publications, Goodreads, MetaReads, and Simon and Schuster has been good enough to introduce this platform where we bring authors for a talk and let them be connected with their readership. So in a continuous effort of that, we are meeting a very talented author today. And usually it's a very easy thing to give an introduction about an author, but reluctantly, I had to follow a bio, like a written bio, because there's too many roles she plays, and I'm going to read it from a book itself. Passionate about children's literature, for her stories hold a magic that is mesmerizing, which she wishes to share with others. So far, she has played different roles as a head of department, ATI Candy, lecturer in English, teacher, professional and sworn translator, co-author, apart from the roles of her sister, spouse, and mom. And now I'm sure you would agree that it was such a difficult thing to gather information about her. Graduating from the University of California, she also holds a Master of Arts degree in linguistics from the same university, together with a diploma in counseling from the Institute of Psychological Studies in Sri Lanka. So it's my pleasure to introduce Thamarasi Mahawattage, who is the author of an award-winning book, Rickety Rocks. Welcome, Thamarasi.
Yeah, thank you, Danica. Thank you very much.
So I'm just wondering now, would you like to add anything other than the details that are already mentioned to your readers? I'm sure they would love to know who you really are, some personal details if you wish to share.
Yeah, so if I were to introduce myself in a couple of words, I'd say I'm an introvert, a bit of an overthinker, and I tend to analyze a bit too much. Also, sort of a perfectionist. So not the ideal combination, not the easiest combinations to live with, as my immediate family members would know, and especially my husband would admit to it. But in his case, that's what he signed in for, right? So yeah, apart from that, of course, I've always liked books. My childhood was surrounded with books. That kind of gave me the impetus to write later on.
So you heard it. It's not an easy thing to live with a perfectionist, as she says it. I'm sure in a literature we'll be able to see some of these influences. So next question is about Rickety Rocks. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you won an award for this. So can you give a brief of what Rickety Rocks is about? Kind of a synopsis brief of what your book is about for your readers.
Yeah, so what's interesting about Rickety Rocks is the characters that are there. If you see, till you see the book, you wouldn't guess who the characters are. But when you see the book cover, you get to know the characters. My story evolves around a bunch of chairs who come to life. So they can speak, act, play, and engage in all sorts of activities. So then if you come to the protagonist, the main character of the story is Rickety. Now, what's interesting about Rickety is that he has a weakness. He has one weakness, which turns out to be a big problem for him, a huge challenge for him, because of the people around him, especially the friends, tend to treat him differently, tend to view him differently because of his difference, because of his weakness. So my story unfolds Rickety's story and tells us how Rickety feels about being treated differently. how he tries to navigate those challenges, how he tries to respond to them, and the emotional trauma and the emotional issues he faces, and his attempt to fit in when others label him as a misfit. So you've got to go through the book to see how it unfolds. Uh, you would notice that for Rickety, life is not easy. It seems to be getting harder, getting worse from bad. When you come to the end of it, you actually discover whether Rickety becomes a victim or victorious because of the challenges he has in life. In shorter form, whether he ends up a winner or a loser. So that's the synopsis that I would like to share, not the whole story.
I think that's fair enough. Next question is, why did you select children's genre? I mean, you are a talented lead genius in many ways, and you have a lot of life experience. I'm sure you could have done a adult fiction, but what was your reason to do a children's book?
Yeah, in trying to answer that question, I'll again track back to my childhood. I told you I was always in love with books. I was surrounded with books, thanks to probably my parents who put up a mini library at home in the form of a full-length wall cupboard full of books, and also the hand-me-downs of my brother's books. So reading those books had always given me a love for stories and an awe for the authors who write them. So in the back of my mind, I think I always wanted to write something on my own. However, for some reason, it didn't manifest for years. I think I couldn't probably figure out who my audience would be and what my message to them should be. I wasn't clear of that. So my inspiration to finally write Rickety Rocks came about because of one special, very special person in my life, right? My daughter. So when I was expecting her as a first-time mom, you know, as first-time moms usually do, you think ahead of yourself, you plan. And I was planning a birthday gift for her to be given for her first year completion birthday, even before she had been born, right? So that's how crazy it was. So I thought, being a book lover, what better gift would be than a book, not just any book, but a book written specially for her, a book that is dedicated to her, and perhaps a book that carries my message to her. So my daughter was the inspiration that I really needed to finally push through and start writing. And when I got that thought, of course, I didn't have to think. I knew my audience. I knew my message. It was just a matter of, you know, days. I started writing, and I enjoyed writing it. So that's how I chose children's literature, because it was to be a gift to a child.
Well, I mean, that's a very personal reason, and I think it's a good enough reason to do a book. And I think your daughter is very lucky to have a mother who is also an author and who thinks way ahead of time to plan a book for her. So now you're mentioning about your habit of reading at an early age. So my next question is about reading itself for kids. How important it is for kids to learn the art of reading at a very early stage? How can it help them or reflect in their day-to-day life?
Oh, wow. So reading matters such a lot, I feel. On a personal level, I believe I'm where I am because I started reading early, and I started reading a lot. So what happens when you read at an early age is that it expands your vocabulary. It simply brushes up your grammar, and you remember the spelling when you look at the words ever so often. So all aspects of language learning is covered in reading, apart from speaking, I would say. But if you read out loud, that aspect is also covered. So those are the areas that I would like to highlight. Also, reading gives you a sense of relaxation. Now, we know we have a very competitive education system here, but to escape that and to relax your mind, to think out of the box, reading would help children. Also, there are so many wonderful books out there. So when you read those books, you can live through the experiences of those writers who've written them. You don't have to go through those experiences yourself, but you get experience out of the books. And that's another way that can enrich your life, right? So it enriches life, it relaxes your mind, it enhances your language abilities. And when your language abilities are at a high level, it always seeps into other subject matter as well, because you are familiar with books, you like books, you go ahead with other study material. That all comes back in full circle. So if you are a reader, most often you end up a leader, I would say. For the little children, that's a must.
All right. So I hope your daughter is an early reader too. And can you just give us an idea of how your writing experience was? Because I presume that each writer has their own habits. Some wake up very early at a peaceful time, but you had a very challenging life because you were a working mom, and you had so many other things to look after. So how did you write the book? What was your experience like, the little journey from the first letter until you finish it?
Yeah, so as I told you earlier, my inspiration was there. So actually, it wasn't challenging for me to write at that beginning stage, because I was so excited about giving a gift and spreading some love and including some messages that I wanted the reader to find through the book. It just, it's like just magic. It was like happening involuntarily. The ideas are coming, I'm writing, but then I'm editing again, I'm rereading, editing. So being a working mom, I don't know how I did it, but somehow or other I've done it. Yeah, because when you really like what you're doing, you don't mind the time, the effort, the sweat you put to something. It's when you don't like your job that you hate doing it. So writing this book was a magical experience for me, a very loving experience for me, that it wasn't challenging in that sense. But the challenges were there in getting it out into the printing world, I would say, because after writing it, this is kind of funny. After writing it, I told you I finished writing it even before my baby was born. So when I got her, I realized, oh my goodness, this book is so over the top of a 1-year-old. Like, she's never gonna be able to get this when she's 1 year old. So, and also when you have a little baby with you, when you're responsible for the survival of the baby, books and publishing, all those things goes out of the window, right? So the book was kept aside and I started taking care of her. So then life has this funny way of unfolding around you. You go on doing the mundane stuff, you cook, you eat, go to work. You take care of your children. You try to find them schools. You try to build houses, and all those dreams, they kind of vanish into the background. That happens in life, right? And you know, every few years I would suddenly remember, oh my goodness, there's that book that I had written. I want to publish it, and I would tell my husband, we've got to do something about it. But then again, the other ordinary matters come into play. So I think the real challenge came in the form of those things, not being able to give a lot of priority to that dream, that lofty dream. And also, maybe because it's my first book, maybe because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I wanted to do a very good job at it. So trying to find the best illustrations, trying to get the exact word in place, all those things took time. Those things were challenging with my work life, trying to balance it all. Yeah.
Well, you set the stage for the next question, but I also need to go back to the description or the little bio that is here. So you're the head of department ATI, lecturer in English, teacher, professional and sworn translator, co-author, apart from being a mother, sister, spouse. So where do you have time for literature?
Yeah, so the profile has it all in one page, but in real life, it happens in segments. The teaching part happened when I was an undergraduate or waiting to enter the university. And the assistant lecturer part happened soon after I passed out of the university. Then the co-authoring of the book Visakha happened before all of this, just after I passed out of school, because I did it with two of my friends to honor the founder of our school, Visakha Vidyalaya, Mrs. Jeremias Diaz. And then next thing, yeah, after my career at the ELTU, University of California, I moved on to a semi-governmental organization. It's SLIAT. It has a very long name, Sri Lanka Institute of Advanced Technological Education. There I worked as a lecturer and eventually turned into a head of department in English. So all those things had some linear structure. And I became a translator, a professional and an official translator attached to a state bank, National Savings Bank, after shifting from my career in the academics. And so then, of course, is the period where I start writing. So yeah, again, what I got to say is that when you love the job at hand, you find time. If you are really doing something you love, you don't know how, but you find time.
That's a good thing to hear, because we can hope that you will have some time for few more books. So next question is about the illustrations. There are two questions. First of all, I would like to know the role played by Shenali D. Silva and how important illustrations are in a children's book.
Yeah, so especially in case of Rickety Rocks, because it's an original story where chairs come to life. There's hardly there's a place for you to find inspiration, because not many illustrations are there with chairs that are alive. So we were facing a challenge in terms of finding an illustrator. We had to search and then try out and then see whether that would suit our book, because the illustrations themselves also tell a story parallel to the written word. So yeah, it was wonderful that we met Shenali, because her style really matched with my text. And then we had the discussions that went into forming the illustrations, because it was challenging for her as well to think of how to portray chairs and to make them come alive. And also even the cover page, not to give away the story from the cover page, but to make it still interesting enough and vibrant and colorful enough. So it was a mutual discussion that went on to bring these illustrations out, and Shanali did a wonderful job. So I would say perhaps here in our country, not a lot of attention is paid to illustrations, which is a pity because children are basically attracted to the illustrations, and illustrations help you pave a smooth path for the story to flow on. So yeah, illustrations was a challenging task, but I think you can see from the book that we've nailed it as well. So thank you, Shanali.
So big thanks goes to Shanali, I suppose. So my next question is like your selection of the narration. Now you're bringing this story to life with nursery chairs, not with rabbits or birds or fish that are very familiar to children. So why chairs after all?
Well, there are two ways in which I can answer that question. One is obviously, I told you when I was writing it for a very personal reason. And at that stage, you are really emotional and sensitive to all sorts of things, you know, when you're expecting a child. So although I wanted to write an endearing story that could carry my message, I did not want to subject a live character, let's say a boy or a girl or a living thing, through the hardships that Crickety is going to go through. I don't know whether you can gather it, but I felt it would be cruel. It would be kind of, I couldn't bear it at that stage. So that's one reason. Chairs, of course, okay, like they would be able to take it, right? And the other reason is, again, something that goes way back to my childhood. I told you I was a book lover. There was also this special chair at our place, a very elegant, cozy chair, which I used to perch on and go on reading my storybooks without a care in the world. I'm not gonna specify what type of a chair it was because it would give away the story. But I have fond memories of my time spent in that chair. You know, when you're a child, you're very impressionable, and the feelings, emotions you go through, things you like, things you form a bonding with, those things just carry on in life. So even after becoming an adult, I still remember my little chair and how much fun it was for me. Unfortunately, the chair is no more, but that memory and the almost tangible feeling of comfort I had there, safety, the wonder, it's still with me. So I believe when I was writing this endearing story, my endearing memories of that chair also seeped into it, found a way to seep into it. So it does two things. It keeps my memory of my favorite chair intact, and also it doesn't hurt any live thing, live being through the story. So that's why chairs. When I was writing it, I didn't really think of it as a big deal. But now, with my readers and fans, I understand that they find it quite interesting. they're saying that they have never seen where there's a story about chairs coming to life. So they've never seen. So different people come to me at different stages and say, that's very original, that's very creative. I've never seen, I can never remember a chair being portrayed like that. So those were the reasons for my my personification, of chairs. So it worked out really well.
I think I have a very good idea about the chair that you had in your childhood, and anyone reading the book, you will find it at the latter part of the book. So I will leave it at that. And next thing is about the vocabulary, and the book is with full of rhyming words and a well balancing language. So I believe that vocabulary is a very sensitive subject in a children's book. So you have to be careful. At the same time, you can't lose your creativity. So how do you strike the balance between being careful at the same time giving the best of your creativity?
Yeah. Again, reading and having your vocabulary in a kind of an expanse, brushed up level helps this endeavor. When you have a good vocabulary yourself, that's something that you achieve by reading. It naturally flows into your writing, I believe. And yeah, so when you're writing a children's book, I think you have a very special responsibility. You're catering to an audience that is at a very tender age. They are very impressionable in their younger years. So you have to be careful of not only of the message, but of the words that you choose to convey your message. Yeah, so that's it. Words matter.
All right. The dramatization of emotions. I mean, I read the book and I was at one point in tears with its heavy emotions. And I wonder how you manage this part of dramatization of emotions, because not to make the little readers weep, but at the same time to give an idea about life in the reality in life, how it could, how sadness is also an emotion that people often feels. So how do you balance this between uh, dramatizing to an effect where people find it very interesting, at the same time not to make it too much of an emotional backlash for kids?
Yes. In trying to answer that, I would say because of the original intention I had of presenting it as a gift and as a gift with a message, I was careful how I portray the emotions. But then again, I wanted to portray a picture that is realistic as well, because kids are there. We don't think much of it at times, but children are really smart, and they're smarter than we think. They are smarter than we give them credit for. They pick on things far more easily, far more quicker than us sometimes. So I thought, instead of painting a perfect picture, to portray some things or some issues, troubles that you may have to go through life would serve a better purpose. Also, if I may take more time on this question, I told you I wanted to embed some messages in the story for the reader. And now, since it's a public endeavor, and I told you I revised it and edited it for years. So at that time, I knew it's not going to be a single copy for my daughter. It's going to be out there. So then I thought of the bigger picture as well. So In that sense, I think I lost the question now.
It's about emotion.
Yeah.
About emotion.
Okay. In that sense, I thought of widening my message at a certain stage. For instance, like it has a psychological aspect to it, as I see it. Now, let's say we as parents, we love our children. We want what's best for them. But we cannot assure that we will be there with them always. So you may live long, but then there will be occasions where our kids have to go through life without us. There will be occasions like, for example, very practical occasions. They go to preschool, they'll have to go to school. So in those places, you're not always there. I'm not saying that parents need to be doing helicopter parenting, always hovering around there. But what I'm saying is sometimes parents and elders or teachers even don't realize that there is a gap between the elders, the adults, and the kids. Although you think you know all about your kids may be going through stuff that you are not aware of. Because if you look back to your childhood, I'm sure you can come up with examples where you felt alone, where you felt hard done by, where you felt embarrassed, afraid. Not that your parents didn't love you, not that you had a nice family, not that you didn't go to a good school, but there are instances where each one of us as individuals go through very isolated spaces, go through very critical stages. And for a child, because they are at a tender, impressionable age, it is quite powerfully felt. So one thing I try to do through my gift of a book is to provide them sort of a guide, an emotional guide if they need, a roadmap, you can call it, if they get lost in their troubles. It might be little troubles to us, but they are huge troubles to them. So a roadmap, and then also, let's say if they go through something and they lose their footing, and when they fall, there should be a safety net to catch them. So I felt like this book would do that, fill that gap, and like catch the child when he or she falls emotionally. I don't know whether you get it. Yeah. So yeah, okay, that's great. So what I'm trying to say is, if a little reader reads the book and gets the message, gets the sense that these things happen in life, like you can't always win. There's gonna be failure at some point of time, and you're gonna feel bad. You're gonna end up alone. But that's not the end of the world, because if you don't have any real life incidents to refer to, you might remember Rickety. There was this nice story that I read that I enjoyed so much. Think of what happened to Rickety, but think of how Rickety bounced back. So this is my safety net that I'm providing to the readers, the buffer that they can use to absorb a shock that may come across. So all these psychological aspects are also there. And I would like to add to that, to say that it's not just in my mind, because there are a few fans that have gathered around me. And just last week, one of the parents told me that her child is not yet able to read it. She has to read it, but he wants it to be read every day as a bedtime story. So there is something that grabs his attention there. There's something soothing for him there. And also a different friend of mine came along and said one day, you know, this happened. We were having a little discussion, and then we gave some remarks to our daughter about the school marks that she had got. Last time she had got good marks, this time not so good. Why is that, sort of? And she was saying, do you know what she did? She went ahead, got rickety rocks, brought it to the room, and turned to the certain page and showed them, see what happened to Rickety, see what Rickety did. So maybe I can do it next time. So what I'm trying to say is that the messages have gone through. So it is acting as the safety network, as the comfort the children needs in their hour of need.
That's remarkable, especially given the time that we live in. Kids face a lot of bullying, and sometimes they take time to get adjusted to new environments, to find their place. And with this busy world, parents are always not able to help them, and to empower them with a very powerful psychological message that can always that they can remember until they are grown ups. Even at the time they are grown ups, I think there's a very powerful message in Rickety Rocks. It's remarkable. I mean, when I read that as a parent, the same thing I thought, that if any kid reads it, they will always remember there's always a way to come back and win their world. So it's a great thing. Now, you won an award for the right reason, but what was it? And can you tell us about the award?
Yeah, so I'm happy to say that I won the 2023 State Literary Award for the best literature, best children's literature in English, published in 2022.
So congratulations. Being a debut and winning an award is not something that you hear every day. I think it has been justified by the magnificent work here. So how important it is an award for a writer in his writing, in somebody's writing life?
Yeah, so that's interesting again. Now, when you're a first-time writer, not everybody believes in you. You find it difficult to find listeners. You find it difficult to find room for you in the media, newspapers, etc. So when you win an award, tables turn. You get room, you get invitations, and people are willing to take you seriously. So I think that's a great thing that can happen with award presentation. You know, when I first wrote it, and when I invited people for the launch, they would go, oh, are you a writer? Have you done this before? Right? I said, no, this is my first one. They said, okay. And then recently when I won the award, and when they see it on the Facebook or the newspapers, then they again come back and ask, oh, you won an award, I heard. So is this the first award? So like, is it the first book? Is it the first award? The geography around it changes. They always want to know whether it's the first. But what I'm also trying to say is, you've got to give some credit and have faith in first time doers of a thing as well, because there's always a first time for everyone, right? So for any first time writers, believe in yourself even if the others don't.
That's great advice. Now we live in a digital era where everything is becoming digitized from economy downwards, and children's literature has been digitized in different platforms, from TV screens to audiobooks. There's so much available. So as a writer, like a traditional writer, what do you think about this challenge? Because if you look at the digital space, you can bring different sensors. You can bring visuals, you can bring sounds, which for kids could be very appealing. So how do you see a writer's future in a digital era? Do you think that we writers have to be more concentrated on digitizing their products, or how do you plan to live with this challenge? And what's your opinion about digitization of children's literature, especially?
To be honest, I haven't given it much thought till now, but I guess in this day and era, it'll be difficult to separate and leave aside digitization all alone. So while the pen and the ink and the pages, the paper has a certain appeal to the new generations, it seems they have the same appeal for the digitized world. So I guess a collaboration between the two would work.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize what the future holds and to probably adapt or try to make a line in between. So I have two more questions for you. One regarding your future projects, that you already have a readership, and every day there's someone new adding and word of mouth is spreading. So what do you have to present them?
Yeah. So something that I feel that personally what I believe in is inspiring readers or inspiring others in some way or the other. If you take the local context, there are a lot of there's a lot of hopelessness hanging around. So I would like to address that aspect in the sense I will reframe it this way. In the media or when you talk to others, you see so much negativity. You see people putting down each other so much. A lot of negative news gets hyped. But is it only negativity that we have? No, there's so much positivity also, but it's not in the surface. I would like to kind of read something from my book. It says, many among us believe what's said in the loudest voice. So the loudest voice is reserved for the negative stuff. So what about all the positive aspects that we have, right? So I would like to take a stand for that and bring out the positive aspects in people's lives, because there are so many unsung heroes in our communities that people never hear about. Those are the real people who should get a voice, who should get their picture in the paper, about whom people should talk about. But in reality, on news, on social media, even among chit-chats of friends, we hear about the criminals, the thugs, the drug dealers. I mean, we should change that. We should bring the names of the real unsung heroes to the forefront. And then the other part, hopefully, will go down. Because otherwise, what is the message that we are giving to our children? That our world is all bad, our world is full of negativity. So, so that's something that I have in mind. You hear about these little children achieving great achievements despite all hardships in life. So what if we could shed some light on their real life achievements, right? So those are some projects that that's over there. So maybe next thing would be in those lines.
So I wish you good luck with that. And I firmly believe that words are more powerful than bullets, as well as words itself can change the world. So the last question for you is in fact for your readers who are the little ones. So what is your message for the little ones that read Rickety Rocks? As well as, would you like to read a page or a favorite quote from this for the little readership?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dhanuka. Yeah, so a number of themes, a number of little messages young readers will find when they read the book. Some of the messages are, of course, obvious because the characters speak them out or think about them. But some of the messages, little nuggets of wisdom, they are hidden in between the lines. So when you read it and think about it, those things will come to your mind. So if I were to express a few of the messages, let's say, not giving up when things get tough, not giving up, believing in yourself, not giving in to peer pressure just because a lot of them are saying it, or just because the most popular people are saying it. It might not necessarily be the truth. So peer pressure, be careful of it, be aware of it. And also friends, we all have friends, so many friends, but are all friends true friends? Are all friends real friends to us? So even at a young age, I think it's okay to have an idea as to how to select whose company is good for you, whose friendship is going to be beneficial for you. Because for the fear of losing a friend, if you try to hang on to someone, it might not end up in a nice way for you. I'm talking about it in terms of children, right? So how to find who your true friends are, not giving up, trying hard even when you're losing. Because, losing is as much as winning a part of life. So now quite recently we heard about certain children taking drastic measures when they can't cope with their marks, right? So I think it's such a heartbreaking scenario to think that you are not good enough just because your marks are down, and in a very competitive setting. It's insane. So we have to change that mentality. We have to tell them that you are good enough. You are enough, right? So that's a message that I would like the readers to come and get it from the book. And yeah, also appearance versus reality, themes that they will come across in life. Maybe it's a good idea to expose them to that at a young age. Yeah. So I would like to quote one of the stanzas that are here. Do not fear to fail, for it's but a chance to learn. If you want to win, be ready to take another turn. And just because you had a bad fall doesn't mean you're not good at all. Mistakes can be painful, I know, but that's how you learn to grow. When you falter, as sometimes you will, just brush it off and go until you rise and shine and smile again and dream the dream you want to dream. That's my favorite part.
Thank you, Thamarasi. It was such a pleasure having you today. And I would like to remind our organizers, Neptune Goodreads, as well as Meta Raids, as well as Simon and Schuster. And we had a talented author with a debut book winning an award, Rickety Rocks. And I will finish, I'll wind up with a quote from her on book. And dream the dream you wanna dream. Good luck,